Hi everyone. I wanted to come on today and talk to you about smudging, saging, cleansing, and using some of the sacred herbs and plants for clearing a space. There's different uses and there's different ways of using it. What prompted me to do this was I was watching someone else who, another reader, and I'm not here to bash readers or anything like that, but she was saging her area where she was about to do the cards, which is lovely, of course. However, it's kind of a pet peeve of mine when people take a sage stick like this, or a sage bundle actually like this, and they light it up like it's a big cigar and then start to sage around. And I was also watching another video where they were saging their cards, which is lovely as well. And as if you've watched my cleansing a deck and binding your tarot deck to you, you know I've talked about this, but the guy was doing this with the sage bundle, and I've recommended you do kind of this, as spin your cards around the sage as opposed to the sage around your cards, because when you do this and it's all lit up and he had the whole thing lit up, it gets very ashy and there's embers here, just like any fire, and there's embers, and when you're moving your sage bundle around, you're likely to hit it just like I did that deck, or because you're creating energy, not energy, but you're creating action with this, the wind is getting at it, the air is getting at it, it's more likely to drop an ash onto your cards. Whereas if you're moving the cards and you're doing it mindfully, you're not like meh kind of thing. If you're doing it mindfully, you're less likely to drop ash onto your cards, because you're moving the cards as opposed to the sage bundle. Now, let me get into how to burn sage. I'm a Native American. I'm a Mohawk of the Bear Clan, of the Iroquois Confederacy. And there's many ways that you can burn things. You're not meant to. So I do sell sage at my parlor, so I'm not doing myself a good service here by telling you to buy lots of sage and sage the crap out of the place. You don't need to sage all the time. It's supposed to be a lasting effect, right? So I do sage maybe once a week in the parlor, and then if I've had like an incredibly emotional situation through a reading with a client in here or whatever, I might sage again just to dissipate the strong emotions, whether it's negative or positive, that sort of thing. You know, maybe there's, you know, it's not negative in that she was toxic or that, you know, he was bringing so much anger. It wasn't, and it's sometimes just strong emotions like huge grief, that kind of thing. I might sage after that client just to dissipate that energy. So I've got here my shell. So this is the shell. You can see it's been well used. It's actually, you're supposed to have burnt kind of on the bottom here, because this is where you would burn your herbs. This is actually my mother's shell. She's passed away, so I inherited this from her. So I feel like every time I cleanse or sage or smudge that my ancestors, in particular, my mother, is with me while I do this. So I'm going to take this bundle. So this is a sage bundle. This one has a rose petal with it, so you could get it bundled like this. This is a regular, plain old, ordinary white sage bundle. Then there's other kinds of sages that you can get, other kinds of smudges. So we've got here, this is a cedar one. So this is cedar. So cedar is very cleansing. Sometimes I use cedar in the parlor because cedar also attracts money. So if I'm trying to, like at the beginning of the week, you know, I'm cleansing and I'm smudging and I want a little extra money to come in. We also have the mugwort sage as well, or mugwort smudge as well. So it comes in many different ways and different kinds of ingredients. And so mugwort is very good for divination. It's also very good protection. Sage is more of a cleanser. getting rid of negative energy, whereas mugwort is more of a protection. Cedar can be protective as well. Again, like I said, I tend to use it to draw in that money energy. And then there's Paleo Santo. I have a hard time saying this one. So this is sacred wood. Now, these are all, according to native beliefs, which I am, are sacred medicines. And when you burn these, you need to burn them with respect. And you're not supposed to burn them like big old cigars. And you're not supposed to fill the room with smoke. That's not the point of it. It's sort of less is more. A little goes a long way, right? Because you're dissipating energy, or you're drawing in certain energy. So you don't need a whole big bunch of it. You know, it's not like you need all kinds of stuff. So I brought some samples here of what I tend to do. So I always tell people what you want to do is you want to take this bundle. Actually, I'm looking for my other bundle. This bundle. I'm going to take this bundle, and you actually unclip the bundle itself. So you are going to snip through these, there we go, these ropes. That's what you're supposed to be doing. Now this one, I would tend to crumple up, right? But I'm going to show you here. Just let me get it undone. Wait for it, wait for it. So again, you're supposed to be doing this with great reverence and respect. So like I said, this one came with a rose petal. So there's a little extra love added into this. Rose is a very powerful additive because it's the queen of flowers. And you can do this with any herbs. I'm going to show you this in a minute too. So what you want to do is you want to take this whole thing apart. You can break these things apart, okay? So you'll see that, you know, I can even break off a little piece like this, much like I have here. Or you can, some of the sage leaves broke off here. So you can see there's sage leaves here, right? Little sage leaves. And I'll show you here in a second. You can crumble this up. And again, you're not going to need a whole big bunch. You don't need a whole big bunch. Oh, you can smell that rose though. Oh my goodness, you can smell that rose. It smells so good. So, see? I've just put a little bit in there. Now, you can do a couple different things with this. I'll show you with the shell first. Get out my very cool skull matches. I love skulls. So I'll get out my cool skull matches, and I'm gonna get my lighter because it's just easier to light it that way than to try and strike it off the box, because sometimes the box doesn't always work. So light your match, and then you light the herbs and the rose petals right in here. And just give me a second. It'll start to flare, and you get a little fire going, and that's what it is. It's a little fire, and you can see it's already smoking. And I just have a wee little bit in there. I don't have a whole lot. And it starts to smoke. Just using the last of the flame, I might as well, right? And then what a lot of people forget is your breath is actually very sacred. So I've got it smoking, and it's just that little bit. It's already smoking quite a bit. You don't need a lot. And actually for the camera, I put in probably more than I normally would. But you can blow on it to get the embers going. You should be able to hold it in your hand in one hand. You don't need anything fancy. I do have a feather if you wanted to do with the feather. Normally, I just use my hand. That's really all you need. And you should be able to hold it comfortably in one hand because you're either smudging yourself or you're smudging an area, and you can just wave it any way you want. You know, if you're smudging yourself, I treat it like a water dish, like as if I'm washing myself, right? So I bring the smoke up and down around my crown chakra. I bring it to my third eye a lot of the times. I'll bring it to my eyes and say, you know, like, allow me to see what I'm supposed to see. Allow me to see in kindness. This is kind of what I'm going through in my head. Allow me to speak with kindness, you know, cleanse my words so that they are always landing kindly. I'll bring it to my throat. Allow me to have the speech that I need to have to pass the messages on. I'm thinking of me as a reader. And then also I will often cleanse my heart chakra. So I'll bring it down here and say, allow my heart to be open to receive the messages, allow me to share and love with my clients and that sort of thing. So that I've just smudged myself, and I'll do the rest of my body a lot of the times right down to my feet. And I can also smudge the whole room, and that's how you do it. And like I said, you just need your hand. And if you're offering it to someone for them to smudge, because sometimes I'll offer it to a client and they will then take it. And often I have to show a client how to do that because they don't always know, because sometimes they'll just waft it in their face and they're not really sure what they're doing. So I'll kind of direct them, you know, bring it to your crown chakra, bring it to your third eye, bring it to your eyes so they always see in kindness, bring it to your mouth so they always speak in kindness, bring it to your throat so your throat and your voice and your message are clear, and bring it to your heart, that your heart is cleansed of all negativity and that your heart is in a state of gratitude and forgiveness has happened. So that's how you do it with the shell. If you break it apart like I did and you get these little things, so you can see that this one I've already burned, so I've used it. So a lot of times, sometimes I'll light it right from the lighter. Sometimes the lighter gets hot. Sometimes you don't want to waste all your lighter. So what I sometimes will recommend to people is light a candle and burn. Get your sage going from there. Now this is actually a fairly big piece, but again, you're not supposed to be creating a big cigar. It's just a little bit. You just want a little bit and then you can wave it around. Also too, it's a little more in control. There's less ash that's likely to drop or burn, or, you know, there's fewer embers going around. It's just one little stick. And then, you know, like once I'm done, I'll either put it in the shell here like this. And if the shell's good enough, which this one is, this is my mother, so this is, I'm the second generation to use this. My daughter will probably get this when I go, and then my granddaughters will probably get this when she goes. So you should be able to put this here and still be able to hold the burning sage or the sage stick, depending on what you have, without it getting too hot in your hands. If it's getting too hot in your hands, you've got too many herbs on fire in your shell. So that is something to be mindful of. You can also do it in a cauldron. So there's a cauldron here. This is my little cauldron. So what I'll do for this, because not everyone knows how to do this, and so I'm just here to offer some information, some advice, some guidance, that sort of thing. So what I would do with the cauldron, because a lot of people are like, what do I do with the cauldron? Because you're not really mixing things. You're not brewing potions so much anymore. Now normally I have little tongs so my fingers won't get too dark, but this is a little charcoal disc, and not everyone knows how to use the charcoal discs. So this is the charcoal disc. You can do this with your hands, you just have to be more mindful. I do tend to use the tongs, but I don't have my tongs here at my office. They're back at home right now. And what I would do is I would take the candle that I lit before. I'm not going to do it now because when you light a charcoal disc, it's a bit of a time commitment. So you're looking at, you know, kind of like at least an hour that this charcoal disc is going to keep burning and going to be very warm and hot. So you would light this, and it's kind of cool because the charcoal sparkles, so it adds a little sparkle and magic. It is kind of like zzz, zzz, you know, kind of thing. And then you take the charcoal disc and you actually place it into your cauldron. So when you first light up the charcoal disc, this side will get hot and it will sparkle and it will snap and crackle and pop. And then you put it, so you see one side is sort of rounded, can you tell? One side's kind of rounded and one side's got a little bit of an indent. So I tend to put the rounded side down because the cauldron's round and it holds it quite nicely. And then you've got that little divot for where you can put herbs, that's really, that little circle right there is what you should cover at the most for herbs, okay? So once you light it, you can with your hands, because this side will not be hot, light the other side and put it into your cauldron, right into your cauldron there, like that, okay? So hold on to the one side, it should be big enough, it's big enough even with this small one to put it in without touching the other side that's already lit. You give it 10 minutes maybe, and it will slowly start to burn the whole thing. And you'll look in and you'll see sort of little red spots, probably a lot of gray. Gray is sort of where it's been burnt and now it's nice and warm. Your cauldron is gonna get warm. So be mindful of that. Don't be grabbing the cauldron like this because it's gonna get warm. Unlike the shell, it doesn't stay cool. So it's cast iron, so it's gonna get hot, okay? So it has a little lid. If you want it to light a little faster, you can put the lid on and it'll kind of do its thing. Or if you want to slow it down, you can cut the air off and it'll slow down. But if you kind of put it sort of half on, it'll create a little bit of a breeze, so it'll kind of burn it a little faster if you're in a rush. If you're in a rush, you should be sort of wondering about what you're doing, because magic can't be rushed. So what you can do is you can take herbs. So I've got my little potions and spells box here. And this is where I keep all my sage sticks, the ones that are mine personally. But I also have in here, I brought in a little herb bottle because I sell little spells that come in little herb bottles. So often when I'm telling clients what to do with the herbs, I say you can burn them. You can burn them around a candle or on a candle. You can also burn them in, just getting a few out here. You can also burn them in a cauldron if you have one. Now, they get this bottle and they're thinking, I gotta burn that whole bottle. So I tell people, when you buy my spells that come pre-mixed in bottles like this, there's enough to burn, there's enough to bathe with, and there's enough to carry around. And if you can do all three, usually about 3 times each. So you don't need a lot. So this little tiny bit that I've got here, that's what I'm gonna be putting on the charcoal. That's it. It's not a whole lot. You don't want to overdose the charcoal disc in tons and tons. You do not want to put a whole bottle of these herbs on the charcoal disc. Now I could take a little bit of this rose if I wanted to and break it up and put it into the cauldron like this. So you really kind of are doing a potion a little bit. It's just not a potion you're going to drink. So you're breaking it up and you're putting, and I just took a fraction of that rose and I'm putting it on. The reason you don't want to put a whole lot on is because what you're going to do if you do that is you're going to smother out the charcoal disc and it's going to stop burning. When you start to put the herbs on, it's going to smoke, and it's going to smoke a lot, and it's going to smoke a lot more than you think. So thus the reason for the lid sometimes is like, ooh, that's smoky. So I'm not going to light it up, only because we'd be here for an hour. Waiting for the discs to burn down, sometimes a little longer. I've walked out of circles with my little cauldron and it's still like really hot because the charcoal's still burning. So I have to be mindful of that too. So if you're gonna do a charcoal disc in a cauldron, start it more near the beginning so that by the time you're done the spell, it's kind of finished, that sort of thing. You don't want to leave this necessarily alone for too long. I mean, it should be fine, but at the same time also make sure you're putting it on something that is fire resistant or heat resistant. I often use like little trivets kind of thing that you would use, that you put hot pots on. So you can do that. But don't, like, be mindful of, like, are you putting it on a tablecloth? Are you putting it on a table? Because the feet of the cauldron get hot too, and it could burn into the table a little bit. So you want to be careful of that when you're working with cauldrons and you're doing cauldron work. So you can see, like, from the, oh, where is it? From the bunch that I opened, I used very little. You're not supposed to light the whole thing. And it's very, very disrespectful to light the whole thing. It's medicine. It's meant to be used in small doses. It's meant to, you know, like I said, some draw things in, some push things out. Like this one tends to push out negativity. It's also been shown that it helps to get rid of bacteria. Again, less is more. So after someone's had a cold, it's a great time to smudge. You don't need a whole big bunch. It's much more respectful to Mother Earth to burn it in little bits. It's also, it's not, I mean, yes, it's a renewable source, but it's not necessarily going to be here forever if we're burning it that quickly. A thing like this, like, well, even a small thing like this, and I'm burning every week, should last me almost a year. You really only need one, maybe a little bit more than one sage bundle for a year's worth of saging. And that's if you're doing it every week. So you should not be burning, and I sell these sage bundles, so I'm kind of shooting myself in the foot a little bit here, that it's like, yeah, don't buy sage from me very often. But you honestly don't. I would rather you respect Mother Earth, because like, see, there's this big piece. I wouldn't even use that whole big piece to crumble into my shell. So I'm going to be putting this big piece back into my little box that I have for my sages. And I'm gathering up my rose petal, what's left of it. So there's a whole, I mean, there's even some behind here that I've got. So you saw how big that piece was. I still have a whole bunch of it. I'm going to gingerly put it here so that it doesn't break too much. I've got this stick still, you know, I've got this little piece. I'm going to put that in there into my little box. This stick I've had forever, forever. This stick is a stick that I brought with me, and I've had this for January, February, about 7 months. 7 months, yeah, probably 6 or 7 months, around there. And it's still, I'm still using the same stick. So it lasts for a very long time. And it's more respectful to do that as well. So again, for the Paleo Santo, use the candle and do this. And again, you're not looking to start a small forest fire. This stuff is getting rarer, so it's not something you want to necessarily be burning like it's camp wood, you know. You just burn, I just lit a little bit. That's all you need. Oh, and it smells so good. I love the smell of this stuff. So this stuff smells really great. And again, you don't need to, again, this should last you like a year easy. A year easy. One stick lasts you a year. That's how much you're supposed to use. You're not supposed to be smoking yourself out of the room. You're not supposed to be lighting it like you're starting a campfire. You're not cooking fish or steak or anything over it. Less is more. It's more respectful both to the medicine, to to Mother Earth, to the nature. You're using it to create that cleansed, sacred environment. It should be a ritual. It shouldn't be like a ha 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 kind of party. It's a ritual you're doing. So pay it the honor that you need to pay to it, because I'm tired of watching these people on YouTube that are like, just, woo, we're here with our cards and we're going to like smudge the crap out of you. And again, you know, like if I had this lit, I can light it up a little bit. Again, it doesn't take much to get it lit up either, because again, see, it's just a quick dot into the, and again, I would bring my cards around here. There's a little bit of smoke still coming off of it. Get it back in there, get it smoking. So I would just cleanse my cards like this. Don't do that, because again, this is actual wood, so there actually are embers. You could potentially be dumping it onto your deck. Be mindful, don't be knocking your deck around. Be mindful. Again, it's a ritual, so you are cleansing it. You know, you are creating a sacred energy, a sacred space, that sort of thing. So I just wanted to get on here and do a quick little video about how to sage and smudge and burn your herbs with respect to both what the energy that you're wanting to create, with respect to the space that you're in, with respect to Mother Nature herself, and in a state of gratitude of the fact that you have this. So, you know, I've probably hopefully saved you a bit of money too. It's like, you don't need to buy 10 of these. If you're going through, you know, 3 of these a month, then you got demons in your house and you need to address other problems. Like I said, these should last you a good long time. And I'm one for like picking up the little crumbs and just putting it in my shell for the next time kind of thing. Again, you don't need a whole lot. It's just a little tiny bit. Maybe add a little, like that, like if I'm coming in next week, and gonna re-smudge the parlor for myself, and say I need a little extra money, I might break off a couple little things of cedar and throw them in there. See, I just broke off a couple little ones, throw that in there as a thank you for the money that's going to be flowing in next week for me, and I would light that up and smudge the room with it. I would not be breaking off a whole and then, because you're not creating a campfire. You're creating a ritual, and it's just a little bit that's needed. So thank you for joining me on this. I hope you learned something new. I hope you save some money on your smudges now, and I hope you are able to happily and joyfully cleanse your spaces and create that beautiful energy in your life that you deserve. Okay, thanks so much for being here, and I'll see you again later. Bye.